Jalasi, bienvenue. Wow, what a way to start the morning. Can you feel the energy in this room? It is amazing to have you all here. It's been almost 2 years since I stood on this stage and accepted the leadership of this party and was lucky enough to remain a part of this incredible caucus that you just saw. Yes. Last night, Megan Leslie gave an incredibly inspiring and frankly humbling speech. And in it, she shared her story, which was about feeling the power of community and discovering the ability to make change. And Megan shared a bit of my story, which you also just saw. And while it's true that Stephen McNeil's disdain for teachers and artists and union members, and the list does go on, was what spurred me to put my name on the ballot, the spark actually came much earlier. In 1989, I was attending Gorsebrook Junior High School, not far from here, and one day Alexa McDonough came, and she spoke with a few of us in the library. And she talked, I think, about being an MLA and being a party leader and about the issues of the day, and I have to confess, I actually don't really remember what it was that she said, but I remember that day, and I remember that room, and I remember the impression it made, because the impression was that this woman had a job that was about making the world better. And the title of that job was politician. And I think that sort of rewired my brain. And I think that in many ways, was the real seed. But I also want to tell you about the first time that I ever heard about Megan Leslie. It was a long time before I met her. My husband and I had been in British Columbia. I was at the University of Victoria Law School while Megan Leslie and David Eby were at Dal studying law at the very same time. And I came back and Megan was elected, and shortly after, my husband took a job at HRM. And he came home one day and he said, "I met Megan Leslie today. Wow, she's incredible." And I said, "Well, why do you say that?" And he said, "Well, you know, I met her, and she came and she shook my hand, and she asked me, 'What do you do?' And, you know, I felt kind of dumb, like I work for the city. You know, like that didn't seem to be a job in his eyes at that time that had a lot of value. And he described the way in which Megan's face broke out into a smile. And she said, "Wow, thank you so much for being in the public service." And he said that it completely changed the way he thought about his work. And like Alexa, Megan just lifted people up. And as we saw last night, she certainly still does. And, you know, from Alexa, I learned that this could be a space where we can make real change, a place where a woman can make a difference. And watching Megan, I got to see how that was done in real time, with love and with strength and with clarity. Now, unlike her, I didn't have a history in student government or in this party in any formal way. I was an NDP voter, and I was no stranger to lifting my voice, fighting for what I thought was right, organizing my peers. But it's this party, and it's all of you who have taught me to call that solidarity and the true power of what we can accomplish together in an organized way. And almost 2 years ago, I promised you that together we would fight for the future that we know is possible. And I am proud to report that we have done exactly that. have been tenacious, we have been clear, and most importantly, we have been successful in fighting for the things that matter to Nova Scotia. We may be a small team, but we are mighty. We have put housing front and center on the government agenda. We have fought for and won, hopefully, as Jillian just talked about, funding for school food. And we put an end to childcare waitlist fees, and we are not done yet. While we have work left to do, Nova Scotians are taking notice. We have established ourselves as the effective opposition in Nova Scotia. And I'm going to tell you 5 reasons why. And reason number 1 is Susie Hansen. The MLA for Halifax Needham is a powerful voice, as you just heard, for justice, equity, education, and for our kids. And with 7 of her own, she knows what it means to fight for kids, and she does it every day. Give it up for Susie. Susan LeBlanc, our health critic, has been in the trenches fighting for health care, and in Dartmouth North and in Halifax, she is getting primary care on the agenda and on the ground in a real way. When that primary care clinic opens in Dartmouth North, they might not even invite Sue to the announcement, but everyone there is going to know who helped to make it happen. We are lucky to have Lisa Lachance for so many reasons, but this past session, as our agriculture critic, Lisa stood up for the farm wine sector, helped us understand the issues, and helped to save the jobs of the thousands of people they employ as it was threatened by the Houston government's giveaway to their wealthy friends. You all know I'm not done. We've still got Kendra here in the front row holding down the fort in Cape Breton Center. Kendra was the one who coined the term PC math. That's come back. That's been useful for the last little while. And she is never far from a picket line, always with a megaphone, and always standing up for workers and for people who deserve a fair chance. I think Sue said something last night about when you say someone needs no introduction. Well, a man who needs no introduction in this room, Gary Burrell. Gary's experience has been invaluable to our caucus and to me. He is on the doorstep with petitions every day, pretty much. He's moving motions in the legislature. This is like a new thing, but he's amazing at it. And he has embraced his role as critic for seniors and long-term care, and he is advocating for a guaranteed income supplement for seniors, which is something that should have happened yesterday. Gary is always fighting the good fight on behalf of us all. And what unites us as a caucus is our love for this place and for the people who live here, and our firm belief that we deserve a government who cares about us the way that we care about each other. As I travel this province, yes, I hear that times are tough, but it's not the first thing I hear. From Yarmouth to Glace Bay, from Pictou County, where I've been spending a lot of time, to Petite Rivière, through the gorgeous Annapolis Valley, what I hear about are the ways in which people and communities across this province are taking care of each other, are lifting each other up. And what I encounter is kindness and generosity of spirit and grit. In Pictou County, where we are working to elect the incredible Melinda McKenzie, who was here with us last night. I hear about amazing work happening in environmental education, community building, reconciliation, and economic development. In Lunenburg, I hear about communities banding together to save schools, protect coastlines, and address the housing crisis. What people in this province need is a government who is there to support the work that they are already doing. And that is the government that we are working hard to deliver. And to do that, we have been laser focused on the voices, stories, and potential of real people across this province. Through storms and fires and floods, Nova Scotians have shown again and again that they know how to take care of each other. That we are not just resilient, but creative, entrepreneurial, and tough as nails. That is the promise of Nova Scotia, and it is the job of government to nurture that promise. More than almost any other issue on the doorstep, I hear about housing. We need housing, tons of housing. Through research and engagement with experts, governments, the nonprofit sector, advocates on the ground, from David Eby and his incredible team in British Columbia, what we have learned is this: that part of the answer to the housing crisis is to expedite the building of the unprecedented number of homes required for our growing province, and that we need to make sure that every Nova Scotian can afford to buy or rent those homes. And we need to keep people in the homes they have now without the threat of eviction. Housing is so much more than a roof over your head. People's housing impacts their finances, their health, their future. There's lots of constituency assistants in the room today. These are the things that we deal with in our office every single day. We hear these stories, and they are harrowing. And so we know that housing impacts how we can grow our province, how we can keep our kids here, whether we can afford to retire. We have seniors downsizing and being forced to go back to work because of rent increases. We have a growing homeless population in every region of this province, and Stats Canada now says that we have the worst poverty rates in this country. Shame. Shame is right. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. We can begin to address so many of the problems that our province is facing by dealing with this housing crisis head on, and I stand here today to tell you that we have a plan to do that. Starting day one, an NDP government will massively increase the supply of non-market, co-op, and public housing in this province. That's right. $200 units in 9 years doesn't cut it. We will support the non-market housing sector to leverage federal funding like the $1.5 billion co-op program expected this summer, and we will get things built. And unlike Tim Houston, we will create housing that people can actually afford. I see you out there, Acorn. We can do this. An NDP government will expedite housing and control costs in part through prefabricated building. This has been done with many of the rapid affordable housing projects that the federal government has funded, and we can do it too. ADSM, Affordable Housing Association of Nova Scotia, they got shovels in the ground and people into units inside of 18 months in this province. They did it using this kind of construction methodology, and they did it for a huge amount cheaper than the government has even budgeted for their own public housing builds. And the cherry on the cake is that we have companies right here in Nova Scotia. In fact, we have a company in Pictou County that is doing just this work of creating these prefabricated bills. We also believe that people should be able to purchase homes. Young people hope that they can stay here and raise their families and get a decent job and be able to think about buying a house. Right now, that is out of reach for so many people, but we believe the government has a role. The NDP will expand the down payment assistance program that Nova Scotia currently has from 5 to 10% of the purchase price, up to $50,000, and extend the repayment period from 10 to 20 years. This will put housing in reach for the young Nova Scotians that we want to stay and build a life here. And finally, we have not given up the fight on real rent control and tenancy enforcement. It's more important now than ever. And to further support renters, we would institute a renter's tax credit to help offset the rising costs of rent, as NDP governments have done in British Columbia and Manitoba, and in this environment of less than 1% vacancy, give people a fighting chance to afford to stay in their homes and to know that they won't be evicted. And there is so much more we can do together. We can build a functional healthcare system that prioritizes primary and emergency care. We can work on climate solutions like the earth is on fire, because we know that it is. And we can address the real pressing challenge that so many Nova Scotians are having, just paying the bills at the end of each month. And through it all, we can and we must focus on equity and inclusion. Now, 2021 was a change election. After the austerity of the McNeil years that exacerbated so many of the challenges we are facing now, Tim Houston had a clear message on a huge priority for Nova Scotians. He said that he would fix healthcare. I think you know what's coming next. People believed him, and they were ready to give him a chance. But now, almost 3 years through the mandate, things have gotten worse. You know the reality of healthcare. If you're lucky enough to have access to primary care, you often have to wait because resources are stretched. And if you don't, there's a confusing patchwork you have to run through with only a glimmer of hope of getting the care you need when you need it. If there's a critical health situation, there is no guarantee that an ambulance is available or that an emergency department is open. Shame. The Premier, though, says that we are getting more health care faster. There are hundreds of seniors in this province in hospitals waiting for long-term care who would certainly say otherwise. Even after spending tens of millions of dollars on the Shannon Court Healthcare Hotel boondoggle, which was, I should say, already supposed to be open as a transitional care facility, enriching developers, infuriating the Auditor General and the rest of us, not only is it not open anymore, but it was sold to a private company for a sweetheart deal that's going to see this government pay their mortgage. So really, it's less healthcare, slower. Our hospitals are more crowded than ever, and there are over 157,000 people waiting for primary care. Primary care, I know we have a few primary care doctors in the room, and I want to thank you for being here and for doing that work. Thank you. Yep. Primary care is called that because it is the first point of contact from which all other health care flows. It was the NDP that pioneered collaborative care in this province. And that is still the foundation to our solution. If you cannot address the primary care issue, the stress on every other part of the system, as we're seeing now, is immense. like our emergency departments. Amber Clark, a young mother from Scottsburn, took her 10-month-old boy to the Emerge at the Aberdeen last week because he was having problems with chest congestion and breathing, and it took her 17 hours. And she said she wasn't the only one in there. And as a mother and a parent with children who have had medical emergencies, I can tell you that this is not okay. And I can also tell you that the government's solution, an app, is not a replacement for a primary care clinic. One that knows you, has your file, can follow up and refer. And while tech plays a big role in healthcare, we need solutions that don't come with secret deals with a company that was lobbied for by Pierre Poilievre's advisors. A company, Think Research, that built the app that has now gone under, or I should say, has been acquired by its lender. That's right, a hedge fund, leaving us with a government that has access to our entire individual health records for use by a health app controlled by a hedge fund. Shame. On the heels of the largest data breach in this province's history, this government just passed legislation that allows the Minister of Health, or her designate, I shudder to think, access to all of our individual health data, all of our individual health data attached to our names and our phone numbers and our social insurance numbers. Of course, the minister needs access to aggregated healthcare data. She needs to know what's going on, but why would they need access to our individual data, and why would they make a move this risky? Because they're creepy. I mean, no one says it like Vicky Levesque. In the opposition, during the McNeil years, I worked with Tim Houston in opposition. I was in the legislature when he decried the liberal use of alternative procurement. Spending in the dark, he said. As premier, he has set records on spending outside of the normal checks and balances, and he does not care. I voted alongside Tim Houston to pass the Coastal Protection Act. But in government, he has abdicated his responsibility and left 130,000 kilometers of coastline unprotected. Abandoning the act, leaving our coastline unprotected, thereby allowing unfettered development, which we have already seen beginning, will impact an already delicate ecosystem. In the face of unprecedented climate events, the future calls for environmental stewardship and leadership. And this is the fundamental issue. The Premier thinks that regulation comes down to the preferences of individual property owners. We think all Nova Scotians have a stake in the future of our coastlines and our climate. Instead of real rent control with predictable increases tied to CPI, this government has a rent cap of 5%, but with so many loopholes that rents last year increased by closer to 14%. Before getting into politics, Tim Houston made a living helping rich and powerful people to avoid paying their taxes. And as premier, he is still making a living helping those same people. So what is the alternative? The Liberals are still the same old Liberals. They will tell you whatever it is they think that you want to hear. They will talk about tax cuts, but they will not talk about what programs they intend to cut. They will talk about being stewards of the public purse while the Auditor General investigates their party spending. The truth is, in this province, the Liberals are Conservatives too. Province House can be a bruising place, but I'm here to tell you that it can also be a place of such optimism and possibility. And I, ladies and gentlemen, and folks and friends and people from every walk of life am an optimist. I hold that optimism on your behalf. And as the discourse becomes coarser and the tides move towards the simple and the mean, we in the NDP caucus are holding a place of hope and belief that a better world is possible. We are, in fact, a loyal opposition. We raise these issues, we ask these questions, because that is what we are here to do. We are loyal to you, and we are loyal to all Nova Scotians. As I said 2 years ago, we are charting a path back to government, and that task is now more urgent than ever. Do we want a government who will fight not just for all of us, but for our children and our children's children, who will build homes for them to live in, who will protect our coasts, ready our province for the changing climate, and create the good, clean jobs of the future right here? Yes. I'm here to tell you that the NDP is on the rise. This room is full. We have set fundraising records for our party. We are hiring organizers, engaging incredible candidates. Look around, some of them are in this room. And we are getting ready for the next election. I know we have some PC observers in the room, and when you go back to report on our convention, please make it clear that no matter when the election is called, we are ready. We are ready together to continue our work to lift people up, to give people a government that cares about Nova Scotians, all Nova Scotians, the way we care about each other. And when we look west, I don't know which way west is, and we see what the NDP government can do to meet this moment, we see what it looks like to truly tackle the housing crisis for everyone, to build homes for people, to be climate leaders, to tackle affordability, to fix healthcare, and to put reconciliation at the heart of government. With your help, BC and Manitoba will soon have company. Nova Scotia needs an NDP government, so let's keep building to win.